All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into the Book of Enoch. It's a book that's surrounded by a lot of mystery and a lot of controversy, and we're going to try to unpack a little bit about why this book has had such a lasting impact. And to help us with that, we're going to be looking at an interview with Wesley Huff from Good Fight Ministries as our main source.
So one of the first things that kind of grabs your attention about the book is that it's attributed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah. And, you have to stop and think, how could a text that old survive? And would it even line up with history?
Yeah, that's a great point. It does seem pretty unbelievable, right? I mean, where's the original scroll? Did Enoch even write anything down?
Well, the oldest complete copy of the Book of Enoch that we have is an Ethiopian manuscript. It's from the 15th century. But there are fragments in languages like Greek and Aramaic that are much older, that suggest a longer history, and maybe even multiple authors.
Hold on, multiple authors. So you're saying someone was adding their own ideas over time?
Exactly. And that's where this idea of pseudepigrapha comes in. It's basically writings that are attributed to a famous person, but they were actually written by someone else, kind of like name dropping in ancient times.
Yeah.
A way to give a book more weight.
So we're dealing with potential forgeries here, mystery authors, and a book that's been kind of pieced together like a historical puzzle. I'm starting to see why this is so intriguing. But how do we know when the Book of Enoch was actually written?
Well, scholars believe by analyzing the language, the historical references, comparing it to other texts, that it was probably written sometime between the 400s BC and the time of Jesus. So definitely not by Enoch himself.
Okay, so if it wasn't written by Enoch, then why should we even care about it?
Well, the interesting thing about the book is that it gives us this unique window into Jewish beliefs around the time of Jesus. It covers everything from angels and demons to apocalyptic ideas about the end of the world.
Oh, that apocalyptic angle. That definitely explains why people are still drawn to it today, right? Those big questions about good versus evil, the fate of humanity, all that kind of juicy stuff.
You hit the nail on the head. The Book of Enoch is full of these vivid images and storytelling. That really captures these ideas. And it's no wonder it sparked so much debate and captured people's imaginations over the years.
But here's a question that I think a lot of people have. If this book isn't considered part of the Bible, then why does the biblical book of Jude actually quote from it?
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes it so controversial. Just because Jude quotes from the Book of Enoch doesn't mean the whole book is suddenly considered scripture.
So it's not like an automatic endorsement then, but why would Jude quote it at all?
Well, think of it this way. Even the Apostle Paul quoted philosophers of his time. And it wasn't necessarily because he agreed with everything they said, but it was a way for him to connect with his audience, using ideas that they were familiar with.
So Jude might have been using the Book of Enoch kind of as a common point of reference, something that his audience would instantly understand.
Exactly. It's all about context. And while the Book of Enoch isn't scripture itself, it does give us valuable insight into that cultural and religious world that shaped early Christianity.
So for all of you listening out there, even though it's not in the Bible, don't dismiss the Book of Enoch. It's still an important piece of the puzzle that helps us to understand the world of early Christianity, the ideas that were floating around, the beliefs that people held. It's a fascinating glimpse into the past.
Yeah, and it also raises the question, if this book was so influential back then, what can it tell us about the hopes and fears and the beliefs of the people who lived during that era?
That is a great question, and one that we'll definitely explore further. But for now, I think it's a good moment for us to just kind of process all of this before we dive into the book's actual content.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's give everybody a moment to digest all these fascinating details.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a lot more to uncover in this deep dive into the Book of Enoch, so stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive.
So we've kind of just scratched the surface of the Book of Enoch, and now we're ready to really uncover some of its most intriguing content. Are you ready to explore a world of angels and demons and maybe even some forbidden knowledge?
Let's do it. So the Book of Enoch is full of these fascinating details that you won't find in the Bible. And one of the big ones is this whole idea of fallen angels, specifically these beings called the Watchers.
Wait, the Watchers? Those aren't mentioned in the Bible, right? Tell me more.
Yeah, you're right. You won't find them by name in the Bible. But the Book of Enoch actually expands on this story from Genesis, where it talks about the sons of God taking human wives and having children. And Enoch goes into detail and says that these sons of God were actually angels called Watchers, and they had rebelled against God.
So these Watchers were like angels who went rogue. That's a pretty wild concept. So what happened? Did God punish them? Well, according to Enoch, These fallen angels taught humanity all sorts of forbidden knowledge, from making weapons to magic to astrology. And this knowledge led to, like, widespread sin and corruption.
Okay, so it's kind of like a cautionary tale. Don't mess with forbidden knowledge or you'll bring chaos to the world.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. I think it reflects a deep fear of knowledge that's not meant for humans, a fear that it could lead us astray.
And what about the giants? I've heard those mentioned in connection with the Book of Enoch, too. Are they part of this whole fallen angel story?
Yeah. Remember those children that the Watchers had with human women? Those were the giants, the Nephilim, as they're called in the Bible. And they're depicted as these powerful and destructive beings who brought violence and chaos to the world.
Wow, so we're talking about angels rebelling, we're talking about giants roaming the earth, forbidden knowledge running rampant. This is like something straight out of a fantasy novel.
It does have that epic, larger-than-life feel, doesn't it? And it's probably one of the reasons why the Book of Enoch has had such a lasting impact on literature and art.
But why do you think these ideas have resonated with people for so long, even though the Book of Enoch isn't considered scripture?
Well, I think part of it is just the compelling narrative. It's a good story. It's full of drama and betrayal and consequences. But it also offers these explanations for the existence of evil and suffering in the world, attributing it to the actions of these rebellious angels.
So instead of just blaming humans for all the bad stuff, it introduces this whole other layer of supernatural beings who mess things up for everyone.
Exactly. It's a way of explaining why the world is the way it is, why there's so much pain and suffering. And I think that resonates with this very deep human need to make sense of the chaos that we experience.
It's kind of like shifting the blame, or at least sharing it with some, powerful supernatural beings. But it also makes you wonder, if these angels could fall from grace, does that mean humans also have the power to choose between good and evil?
That's a fascinating question, and it's one that the Book of Enoch definitely raises. It seems to suggest that free will is this powerful force, not just for humans, but even for angelic beings.
And it makes you wonder about the nature of good and evil themselves. Are they absolute, or are they more fluid, subject to interpretation and choice?
Those are some really deep philosophical questions, and it shows us that these ideas about morality and free will and the nature of the divine have been on people's minds for centuries.
It's amazing to think that a book that was written so long ago can still spark these kinds of conversations today. But let's move on to another intriguing aspect of the Book of Enoch. Its descriptions of heaven and hell. I've always been fascinated by how different cultures and religions depict the afterlife.
Yeah, the Book of Enoch offers some really unique perspectives on that, too. It presents these vivid and sometimes cryptic descriptions of both heavenly realms filled with angels and a fiery underworld where the wicked are punished.
So it has that classic heaven and hell dichotomy. But are there any specific details that stand out? What makes Enoch's version different from other depictions of the afterlife?
Well, one thing that sets it apart is this idea of multiple heavens instead of just one single heaven. Enoch describes several, each with its own hierarchy of angels and its own specific purpose.
Multiple heavens. That's fascinating. It kind of expands the traditional view of heaven, makes it a little bit more complex.
Exactly. It's not just this one big happy cloud where everyone goes after they die.
Yeah.
It's this more intricate system with different levels of existence and different roles for different angels.
It's almost like peeling back the layers of an onion, right? Revealing more and more complexity as you go deeper. And it makes you wonder, what did people back then think happened to humans after they died? Where did they fit into this multi-layered heavenly system?
That's a great question. And it's one that the Book of Enoch doesn't explicitly answer, but it does suggest that the afterlife is this structured and purposeful place with a role for everyone. It's not just about reward or punishment, but also about order and divine purpose.
So even though the Book of Enoch isn't scripture, it still offers some interesting food for thought about the afterlife, right? It gives us a glimpse into how people envision the spiritual realm and the mysteries of life and death.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that even these ancient texts can offer valuable insights and perspectives that can enrich our understanding of the world, even if we don't necessarily agree with everything they say.
But let's not forget that the Book of Enoch is also full of controversy. Some of its ideas, especially those about fallen angels and forbidden knowledge, have been interpreted in ways that have led to some pretty heated debates.
Right. Some religious authorities have viewed these ideas as incompatible with orthodox beliefs, even bordering on heresy.
It's interesting how a book can be both fascinating and problematic at the same time. It makes you realize that religious texts are often open to multiple interpretations, and those interpretations can have a huge impact on how people view the world.
Exactly. And the Book of Enoch is a prime example of that. It's a text that continues to challenge us, provoke us,
Yeah.
and make us question our assumptions about the nature of faith and knowledge and the spiritual realm.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive so far, from the authorship and historical context of the Book of Enoch to its fascinating content about fallen angels and forbidden knowledge and the afterlife. We've seen how this ancient text has sparked debate, inspired art, and continues to fascinate people even today. But there's one more aspect we need to explore: the legacy of the Book of Enoch and its impact on culture and thought throughout the centuries.
Yeah, that's a crucial part of the story. The Book of Enoch may not be scripture, but its influence can be felt in everything, from early Christian writings to modern esoteric movements.
So even though it was excluded from the Bible, it still managed to leave its mark on history. That's pretty impressive for a book that's been shrouded in mystery and controversy for so long.
It certainly is, and I think it speaks to the power of ideas, the way that they can travel across time and cultures, shaping our understanding of the world and ourselves.
Well, join us for the final part of our deep dive as we uncover the legacy of the Book of Enoch and explore its enduring influence on everything, from art and literature to spirituality and even conspiracy theories.
We're back and ready for the final part of our deep dive into the Book of Enoch. So you've heard about its mysterious origins, those wild stories of fallen angels and giants, and its unique take on heaven and hell. But now let's explore how this ancient text has kind of echoed through time, influencing everything from early Christianity to modern-day pop culture.
You know, it is remarkable when you think about it. The book wasn't accepted into the Bible, yet it's left this undeniable mark on history. It's like this hidden stream that's fed into these larger rivers of thought. So where do we see those echoes of Enoch the most? Where has it had the biggest impact?
Well, even though it's not part of the official canon, there's evidence that early Christians knew about the Book of Enoch. Remember how the book of Jude actually quotes directly from it? That suggested that its ideas were circulating among those early believers.
Right, we talked about that earlier. But are there any other signs that Enoch influenced early Christian thought?
Oh, definitely. When you look at early Christian writings, you see themes that echo the Book of Enoch. Ideas about fallen angels, the hierarchy of angels, that intense focus on the end times. It's like Enoch provided this framework for understanding the spiritual world, a language that early Christians adopted and adapted.
So even though it wasn't scripture, it still shaped how some early Christians saw the universe, the battle between good and evil, all that.
Precisely. And its influence went beyond Christianity. The Book of Enoch also had a profound impact on Jewish mysticism, particularly the Kabbalah.
Hold on, the Kabbalah, that's like super mystical stuff, right? What does Enoch have to do with that?
Well, the Kabbalah is all about exploring the hidden dimensions of reality, seeking this secret knowledge about God and the universe. And Book of Enoch, with its elaborate descriptions of angels, its cosmic journeys, its visions of other realms, it fits right in with those mystical ideas.
So Enoch was like fuel for those who are seeking this deeper spiritual understanding, whether they were Christian or Jewish mystics.
Exactly. It provided a language and imagery that resonated with those who wanted to go beyond the surface and explore the mysteries of existence.
But it's not just ancient religions that have been influenced by Enoch. I've heard it's even popped up in modern pop culture. How is that even possible?
Well, think about it. The Book of Enoch is full of these epic battles, supernatural beings, journeys into the unknown. It's a storyteller's dream. And you see these themes reflected in everything, from classic literature to modern fantasy novels and films.
So it's like Enoch has provided inspiration for creative minds across the centuries. Isn't that pretty cool?
Right. It's like this ancient text is still sparking imaginations today. And in recent years, there's been this resurgence of interest in the Book of Enoch, particularly among those who are fascinated by conspiracy theories, apocalyptic ideas.
Okay, now that's interesting. Why do you think that is? What is it about Enoch that appeals to those groups?
Well, Enoch talks about fallen angels manipulating humanity, hidden knowledge being revealed, a final battle between good and evil. It's easy to see how those themes could be connected to modern-day anxieties about powerful forces controlling the world, secret societies, the end of times.
So for some, Enoch might feel like it's speaking directly to those fears, validating those beliefs.
Exactly. It offers a framework for understanding a world that can often feel chaotic and uncertain. And whether you take it literally or see it as symbolic, the Book of Enoch continues to spark debate and discussion, which is pretty impressive for a text that's thousands of years old.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our deep dive, what would you say is the most important takeaway for our listeners? What's the lasting significance of the Book of Enoch?
I think the Book of Enoch reminds us that the boundaries of belief are often fluid and ever-changing. It shows us that ideas have this way of traveling across time, influencing cultures,
Yeah.
shaping how we see the world.
And it also shows us that even texts that are considered outside the mainstream can have a powerful impact.
For sure. And to all of you listening out there, I think the Book of Enoch is an invitation to explore, to question, and to keep an open mind when encountering ancient wisdom. You might be surprised by what you discover and how those ancient ideas still resonate with us today.
Well said. Thanks for guiding us through this deep dive. It's been an incredible journey exploring the mysteries and the legacy of the Book of Enoch.
It's been my pleasure. Always fascinating to delve into these ancient texts and to see how they continue to speak to us across the centuries.
And to all our listeners out there, if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, I encourage you to explore the Book of Enoch for yourself. Read it with a critical eye, ponder its mysteries, and draw your own conclusions. You might just find yourself captivated by its ancient wisdom and the enduring power of its stories.